Hello, 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 my podcast people, and thank you for joining me for yet another episode of my favorite podcast. If you're listening, tuning, watching in on the day that it drops, it is Monday, March 17th. The days continue to fly by. We already know we're on the same page with that. So today we're talking about the consequence of outsourcing. But before we get into that, I got one little life update / action item soft suggestion. And that is to go celebrate your people. So last weekend, I went out to celebrate Danny J's birthday. If you don't know, Danny J is Jill's other best friend. And we have like a long, history. We go back since I've known Jill. And we went out to celebrate her birthday. And as we're sitting at dinner and we're laughing and we're recounting stories of going to Vegas during COVID. We went to Vegas twice. One was for Jill's birthday, but first was for Danny J's birthday. And it was such a, tangible reminder of what is worth fighting for right now, right? If this is the stuff that is worth fighting for. This is what is worth saving. So if you're feeling some kind of way right now, which many of us are, I am, go celebrate your people. Go remind yourself what we're fighting for. And what's worth saving. But speaking of worth saving, I'm thinking tentatively that next week's episode will be about building an online business that is worth saving. But we will see where my head and heart are at, so stay tuned for that. But today, folks, we are talking about the consequence of outsourcing. I should probably say the consequences, plural, of outsourcing. And I want to discuss this from both the business and the life side. All right, so to start off, let's define the word consequence. I Googled it. What came up first is a result or effect of an action or condition. That's it. Very simple. A result or effect of an action or condition. We typically give it a negative slant, a negative spin, but to quote James Olivia, y'all know every episode I got to bring them up. But to quote James Olivia, consequences are, period. Right? They're not good, they're not bad, they are, they exist. I want to speak to both sides of the coin, both the good, the bad, the negative, the positive, and speak to it as it relates to both work and life. So we'll start off with work, because I think it's the easiest to think about, especially given the nature of this podcast. So when we think about outsourcing, you typically think of outsourcing tasks that you don't want to perform, whether it's because you don't like them or you're not good at them, maybe you don't know how to do them, or you just no longer wish to do them. Maybe you are good at them, be like, I don't want to do it anymore. Typically, we do this so that we can do something else. We have time to go do something else. I outsource things to my wonderful fucking team. My team is the best. They're the fucking best. Courtney, Joe, Sandy, Lex, even still, she does a few things. I have hired Rhonda in the past to make PDF. All this to say, I'm not against it. The positive consequences of outsourcing as it relates to work. You have more time to do the shit that you want to be doing. Right? You have created an opportunity for someone who actually enjoys that task to go and do that task. Right? Fulfillment on their end. You get all of the benefits, all of the positive benefits that accompany teamwork, right? And this is important to note because this is the opposite of rugged individualism, which is what we're kind of seeing being championed right now, and it's objectively just a lie, right? This idea that like we succeed by ourselves, you don't need anybody, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like all that bullshit, right? Teamwork is a very beneficial thing. No one succeeds all by themselves. And I'm saying this as someone who really does prefer to work independently and individually, but I still have a team and they're the fucking best. Right? And I know that my success is largely influenced by the fact that I have this team. Okay. Other positive consequences of outsourcing. You get to help more people, right? There's only but so much you can do as an individual. You start bringing people on to help you and suddenly your impact is magnified. There can be a possible increase in the quality of what you're doing, of the quality of your work as well, right? Especially if someone's better than you at this thing, then suddenly you outsource it and you're like, damn, that is better. Easiest example, something like PDFs. Rhonda is like the queen of making them. It's going to look a lot better than if I made it, right? I can do a bunch, but it would come out way better if I'm like, I have this vision and then she executes. Right? So let's flip now to the other side of this, the negative consequences of outsourcing. First off, I think that it can very easily lead to you not valuing that task, especially if you've never done that task yourself, right? Especially then you have no concept of that's kind of the next part. You don't understand what is actually required in order to complete that task, right? Especially again, if you've never done it yourself, you're just like, oh, it should take 2 seconds. I saw a thread the other day, and this woman was like, I now understand why when I would ask people to edit a video and say like, oh, nothing big, it's more like a 4-minute video, they were like, yo, that's a lot. Because you try to do it yourself. And you're like, oh, now I see because I've done it. I've tried it myself. Right? There's a pot for, as a, continuing on with this idea of this list, rather, of negative consequences, there could be a possible decrease in quality, namely on the relational side of things, right? No one's going to care as much as you do. I don't care what anyone says. I will die on this hill. No one's going to care as much as you do, which is why you should never worry about like someone taking your idea. No one's going to fucking run with it, right? No one will care as much as you do, not about all of the things in the exact same way. They will not, which is why when you have an idea and you want to breathe life into it, you got to be the one doing it and staying with it. No one else is going to carry that thing. Additionally here, as it relates to a possible decrease in quality, is that care doesn't scale. And what I mean by this is the smaller numbers, especially when you're first starting out, smaller numbers allow for you to care for people in the way that they want to be cared for. Because you can ask, you can talk, you can show up for them individually. Huge numbers means that you can only care for people in the way that your system is set up for, in the way that it's designed for, in the way that it's built for, and whatever it allows. Easiest example here, think about what happens when a mastermind goes from 10 people to 100. Right? It's not to say that like what they're churning out is shit, but that care, it doesn't scale. We know that there's a diminishing returns there. Right? So we see both positive and negative consequences to outsourcing, and a few examples of outsourcing as it relates to work. Let's switch gears now and go into life. Right? Outsourcing things in life. Again, I think that as it relates to outsourcing, we're typically thinking of tasks that you don't want to perform, either because you hate them, or you just rather be doing something else, or you don't know how to perform them, right? Or maybe you need to be doing something else. You're like, I can't do that. I need to be doing this. I cannot be doing that. Most commonly, we see this with like handyman stuff, handy person stuff. Let's say that. Handy person stuff. Landscaping, groceries, cleaning, childcare. Very common. They're the most common, I think. The most dangerous, and this is kind of why I made this episode, is outsourcing your thinking. And this is largely why I made this episode, kind of slip this in there, slide it in there. But we're going to see how it all ties together. So the positive consequences of outsourcing things as it relates to your life, hopefully, ideally, you get more time to spend with your family, whatever that looks like. Right? Your friends, maybe that's your chosen family, or your kids, your actual family, your pets, right? Whatever. You get more time to spend with them. Perhaps also things get done correctly. And I'm thinking about the handy person stuff. If you're like, yo, I just like fucking, I can't do this. It's electrical. The house might burn down. Like let's outsource that. All right, let's outsource the dangerous stuff. Third, you get time to rest, right? We know that phrase, it takes a village, is real. It's very, very real. And when you outsource something, you free up time, and you could use that time to work more, or you could be like, I'm going to rest now. It's great. The negative consequences of outsourcing things as it relates to your life. Again, there's the very real possibility that you don't value the task, namely that you don't value what goes into it. You don't understand what goes into it, or you don't understand the work that is required to sustain it. We already hear, as I say that, we're like, oh, that's not that good, right? That could be bad. Because when we don't understand the work that goes into it, we don't understand the work that's required to sustain it. What does this lead to? Very easily, overconsumption, more consumption, extractive techniques, principles, methods, right? Instead of regenerative, because we don't even understand the cost of it. An example is how we get our food. I was talking to a client the other day, and her husband hunts, and he gets a deer, and they like have a fridge. And ideally, like they'll have more than one deer, but he really does. He's very intentional with the deer that he shoots. He doesn't just go kill to kill, and they have to be obviously a certain size. And he He's like, I could not imagine shooting a deer and it doesn't die. Like, he's very respectful of nature. I think that's amazing. I have another client, she's not a client, another friend, Stephanie Hine. I brought her on the podcast, and I'll probably bring her back on sooner than later. They run their own farm, and they're getting meat from that. And it's like, this family understands what it takes to put that food on the table and the value of it, not just like the monetary value, but like taking a life of an animal, like how this plays into the ecosystem in the world. That is a very clear example of how being in it and not outsourcing any part of that, bringing the food to the table, really helps you understand the value of it and not overconsume, right? And be mindful of finding and figuring out regenerative approaches to things. One of the things that I brought up before that Lux and I do that I'm holding on to is that we clean this big fucking house that we have. We clean it once a month. And because of that, I absolutely do not want a bigger place ever. Like, who the fuck's cleaning this thing? I don't want more. The flip side of this is that our rent, yes, we rent. Our rent includes landscaping. We have like this fucking big tree in the backyard drops leaves. We have AstroTurf on the ground. That's what was already here when we came in. But it includes landscaping. And it would be so easy to be like, let's get a little bit of a bigger yard. Like, so moose can run. I could put like a sauna or something back there, because I'm not the one fucking taking care of it, and I can feel it. Right? I'm like, there's no way that I want more as it relates to this house. Whereas in the backyard, it's so because I'm taking care of this. But I go to the backyard, I'm not doing anything with that, and it's like so easy to be like, yeah, more would be fine. No. Right? So I think you can see how this, we're talking about the handy stuff and landscaping and groceries and cleaning and childcare, right? How there's both negative and positive consequences. And again, I am not shaming you if you do this, if you outsource in these realms at all. But I'm just presenting the reality of things, right? But zero shame, zero shade if you are outsourcing. This is the case with all of my episodes, right? I'm presenting general information, general action items, general soft solutions. You take what serves you and you leave the rest. Right? I don't know your specific situation. But as it relates to this episode and presenting, the positive and negative consequences of outsourcing things both in work and in your life, my concern about outsourcing largely comes with how easily outsourcing has been adopted as it relates to thinking. We've all been there. We've done it ourselves. And maybe you've been victimized by this, right? Where someone sends you a fucking article and they're like, thoughts? Or they send you a post and all they write is thoughts, no hello, no how are you, no thank you, no nothing. Just thoughts. That's outsourcing of thinking. They're saying, hey, tell me what to think about this thing, right? They can put, disguise it as, I'd love to know what your thoughts are. But it's like, what do you fucking think? Stop outsourcing that, right? And I get it. I get why we do this. I get why we want to outsource our thinking. It's inconvenient more than anything to like spend the time to try to sift through all of this stuff. Namely because we have access to so much information, which it becomes a negative, right? So much information. It's conflicting information. People are having really strong opinions on both sides of the aisle. And we're like, well, who is right then? And it's so easy to be like, just tell me what to do. So easy. This is a slippery fucking slope, my friends. Slippery fucking slope. As per always, I think the answer is nuance. I think there's big nuance here. To me, the most ideal is a hybrid model, right? That's the most desirable thing, a hybrid model. A hybrid model that brings in that person's expertise and opinions and your own critical thinking, which we have to understand would be rooted in your values. All right? It's not just about receiving checklists. Go to the Dr. J-Pop episode we just recorded if you want to dive a little bit more into that. Thank you, Courtney. All right. Part of the desire, I believe, to outsource our thinking comes from the need to do so because we're just like, this is so much and I don't have the time. But I also think part of our desire to outsource thinking part of the desire comes because we've really championed not doing stuff that is the slightest bit inconvenient. Right? outsourcing is great. That's why I listed the positives. But I'm like, there's also negative consequences are. And I watch especially in the online business space, it's really like you're not a business owner unless you have other people doing shit for you. That's largely what the narrative is. We use words like a copywriter, or you got an ads manager, or you got a team. And people are like, you're not legit unless you got some big ass team. And it's like, you're saying that you're not legit unless you have other people doing stuff for you that you don't want to do. And I disagree with that message. All right. I would first to say I have a team, so I agree with the value of a team, but not that it makes you legitimate. Right? I will agree with the value of a team because of the things I listed out before. My whole shtick with business coaching has always been to help people build lifestyle businesses. Yes, your lifestyle could be lavish, but the people that I attract and who I'm really speaking to are the people who know that they know what their enough is, and they want a business that's going to provide them with the resources, sufficient resources to be able to enjoy and actually experience life. Right? I stand firm in my belief that the best way to go about this as it relates to business is by keeping your business lean. Small team and do a lot of shit yourself, especially to start off with. As we continue to watch our nation attempt to be divided so that it can be conquered, my beliefs on this lean business approach are very quickly bleeding over into having a lean life, right? Not to be confused with minimalism, but having this lean life where you got a small team and you're doing a lot of stuff yourself and you have time to actually live and experience life. And you're using that time that you've created and that you have to live and experience life, not to just like do more fucking work, right? But the point with this episode, it's not to shame you again. It's absolutely not to shame you if you're outsourcing things, right? I outsource things and I try to put that in there so that you would see like, I'm there too. I do this as well. Your situation is your situation. And again, I'm putting out there blanket thoughts and blanket suggestions, and you take what serves you and leave the rest. Right? But the PT in me stays trying to figure out and address the why, right? The underlying cause for things so it doesn't come back. Because our country right now, y'all, this ain't, we're not in a good fucking way. Right? But I don't want any Band-Aid fixes. I am too much of an HSP, and I've got too much life left ahead of me to be like, oh, let's put a Band-Aid on and we'll just deal with it tomorrow. No, let's fucking fix it. Let's build something that's worth saving. So the action items I'm going to leave you with. Number one, stop and think about why you're outsourcing. You're making time for what? More work? More consumption? More family time? More experience of life? Like, what are we doing? We're outsourcing. Why? Because we're supposed to? Think about the consequences of outsourcing, both good and bad, but particularly the negative ones, and how our actions and our choices to outsource are contributing to what we're experiencing right now. Right, to me, this is taking radical responsibility and leaning on radical responsibility, which is AKA how have I contributed to this and what can I do? All right, leaning on radical responsibility as opposed to leaning on rugged individualism. Right? And then lastly, a soft suggestion to perhaps take some things back. Do some stuff yourself. De-outsource some of those things. All right, that's all I got. One quick thing before I go. Since I mentioned taking some things back, last episode I mentioned that I canceled Audible. And my awesome podcast editor, Courtney, y'all all know her. I say her name every episode. But she hit me with two alternatives I want to share with you. First is Libby, the library app. And the second is Libro.fm. You can buy audiobooks from your local bookstore. So 2 great options. Fuck Bezos, fuck Musk, fuck Trump, fuck all that bullshit. All right. As always, endlessly appreciative for every single one of you. Until next time, friends, Maestro out.